This may be a wild statement to some, but I think out of the 4 original Team Silent games, Silent Hill 3 might be my favorite one. There's just something about it. It has an art style, a charisma, and a charm to it that none of the other games have to this extent. I think of Silent Hill 3 as the absolute peak in cultivation of all the things Team Silent has learned from making these games up to this point. A sort of swan song before everything goes horribly wrong. Spoiler warnings for the game, blah blah blah, you know the drill by now. I've said this before, but this was the first introduction to Silent Hill that I had as a child. My mom was exploring the train station and got clapped by one of these trains, and I also remember her running around fighting these fat motherfuckers with this shotgun. But, like I've said before, I had no interest in traditional survival horror games for a very long time. As a kid who grew up with Resident Evil 4 and up, if you weren't on that kind of timing, I wasn't interested. And I wouldn't be for almost 10 years. But having played more and more of these kinds of games and having more experience, I can say honestly this is one of the best ones. And also probably the most straightforward entry in this series. The game starts us with a girl walking through an amusement park. She runs around for a bit before getting rocked by a roller coaster and wakes up to find it was just a nightmare. Let's go ahead and rip the band-aid off her. The game tries to play around this idea that you won't know who this girl is. I have no idea who was actually shocked by this twist back when it first came out, but to most horror fans today with even a passing interest in video games, you know Heather Mason as the girl from Silent Hill 3, and the way you'd know Freddy Krueger as the villain from Nightmare on Elm Street, even if you've never seen a single movie in the franchise. Mason as in Harry Mason, the guy from the first game who went into hiding with the child he was given at the end. Not, what do the numbers mean, Mason? She's been chilling at this mall for a while and fell asleep. She's being tailed by a private investigator named Douglas, who tells her that he has information about her birth. She says she's not interested. Dad says not to talk to strangers. So she dips out into a bathroom and out a window to lose him, and then back into another part of the mall. So far so good until it's not, because she passes by a store where some lady just got mauled by a monster. Heather picks up a handgun the lady dropped and mag dumps the thing. Just like that, with minimal downtime, we have our first weapon, we've encountered our first enemy, and we're good to go. Perfection. I'd bet $50 that Resident Evil Requiem, in comparison, will have a long drawn out introduction where you run from something that you can't kill for no other reason than to farm Twitch clips from children with Five Nights at Freddy's brain rot. Either way, it's time for Heather to look for a way out of here. This leads to her running into Claudia, a high-ranking member of the cult from the last game who spouts a mumbo-jumbo about how she let the monsters into the mall, and about Heather remembering her past, which leads her to accidentally unleashing her Alessa powers and fucking over the mall worse than it already was, by pulling it into Otherworld. With the game's introduction good to go, let's talk gameplay. So if I could describe Silent Hill 3, it would be Team Silent's hard work and knowledge paying off. The most polished in its gameplay and combat of the original 3. If you've played the 2 before it, things control the same. You explore creepy locations, bonking shit over the head, or speeding past it at your preference. In fact, this game does something very interesting from the jump. In the opening location, you can find a bulletproof vest you can equip that reduces the damage taken but also reduces your run speed as a trade-off, meant to encourage players to fight more and engage with the combat. Team Silent clearly doing this after seeing how even with the absolute buffet of ammo they provided in Silent Hill 2, a lot of people still chose to just speed past more stuff than they intended them to. Seem to want to strike a better balance with this game. The enemies are tankier in this game compared to the other 2, but with this bulletproof vest, so are you. Though I gotta say, sometimes I forget to take the damn thing off while I'm running past something, and I think to myself, why in the hell am I moving so slow? Oh wait, that's right. The weapon variety in this game is also just insane. We have our trusty steel pipe, no Silent Hill game is complete without it, but this game also has stuff like stun guns, submachine guns, katanas, fucking medieval maces, shit's crazy, dude. In addition, remember how I told you that Silent Hill 2 has a blocking mechanic that absolutely nobody knows exists because the controls to use it were straight up fucking asinine? Well, that's been addressed here. Now you can use it while aiming. Should have been like this to begin with, but hey, that's old horror games for you. Takes forever and a million sequels for the most basic common sense combat functions. A lot like the dodge in Resident Evil 3, this goes a long way into making the old clunky combat feel more manageable. It's still ass, don't get me wrong, but in my opinion, it's dressed up enough to be semi-palatable in today's market. It's pretty funny how similar Resident Evil 3 and Silent Hill 3 are in that of the original trilogies, I consider them to be the best, and my favorites for their combat and gameplay improvements. A lot of weapons even now have attack strings instead of the same animation every time you hit something. For an old ass clunky game, this is actually pretty respectable when it comes to improvements. There's a hotkey for consumable items now that you can use for things like jerky to distract certain enemies, or healing, but I tend to use it as a designated quick reload button. Honestly, Silent Hill 3 could have been perfect here if not for one big blemish. See, Silent Hill 3 only has two endings, one of them being the normal canon one and the other one being the what if bad ending. For some reason, they decided to not only tie that ending to one specific choice made, but killing a shit ton of enemies in the game. The required count is outrageous, I think it's like 100 or something like that. So the way they went about making sure you can achieve this count is to just fill random rooms with a fuck ton of enemies and absolutely zero supplies in. I'm dead ass, you will be exploring and just walk into a room with like 10 nurses or some shit. You'll kill them all and there will be absolutely nothing else in here. What in the fuck were they thinking? This is just straight up like poorly designed, like there's no defense for this. Did I mention that the second ending is only achievable on your second playthrough? So you end up in this situation where your first experience with the game is harmed by New Game Plus kill farming rooms for no reason, that do nothing but drain your resources unnecessarily. One of my biggest pet peeves in old horror games is when some shit that should just be common sense, or a problem in the game design that can be easily solved with a simple tweak, just isn't implemented due to pure negligence or incompetence. Like, this really isn't too different from how the first two games were designed. It's just basic survival horror shit. You walk into a room and they contain either supplies, key items, or enemies. The thing is, in most horror games, including Silent Hill 1 and 2, if there are enemies placed in a room and it isn't the designated way to go, there's usually something in there to reward you for exploring, be it a small health pickup or some ammo. The kill farming rooms here, with nothing in them, end up at odds with the core philosophy of exploring for supplies. The bulletproof vest I mentioned earlier is found through exploration. The game encourages you, just like the previous ones, to check rooms and your corners for stuff to pick up. Then it turns around, contradicts itself, and fucks you for doing it, in the name of some non-canon ending no one gives a fuck about. Now, in honesty, there's only a handful of rooms in the game that operate like this, but a handful is still too fucking many. There shouldn't be any at all. You could have kept the enemy counts in ambush rooms the same as they are now, and just put a couple of health drinks or ammo boxes in the rooms as compensation. It's no different from what you were doing before, in the last two games, and the end result is still the same. Lucky for me, I play this on PC these days with the quick save function. So if I ever do forget that I'm about to step into one of these dogshit time wasting rooms, I can just roll the save back. But when I first played this game on a PS2 emulator, boy was it fucking annoying to just have my resources drained for no reason with nothing to show for it, at least once per major area of the game. With that out of the way, on to something positive. This is without a doubt the peak of Silent Hill art direction as a franchise. I don't think I can argue another Silent Hill is as aesthetically pleasing to me besides maybe Homecoming. This is for all intents and purposes Silent Hill 1's visuals if they were made on the PS2 instead of the PS1. And it really puts into perspective how tame some of Silent Hill 2's locations are in comparison. We are back to seeing some absolutely outrageous shit as we walk around. And the funny thing is that Silent Hill 3, ironically, doesn't really take place in Silent Hill until about the halfway point. The first half of the game is really about Heather's journey to try to get home to Harry from the mall, while she keeps triggering other worlds subconsciously. This game is an even bigger treat on New Game Plus, as you get some extra effects and stuff that you don't get on your original playthrough. I know people like to glaze Silent Hill 2's sound design, but I'd say that Silent Hill 3 dunks on it there too. Speaking of sounds, Silent Hill 2 had some pretty dogshit vocal performances all around outside of Mary and Maria in the OG, to the point where I preferred the HD collection voices. Silent Hill 3's voice acting goes back to Silent Hill 1's level of performance, as in good enough. There's only 2 performances I'd say are genuinely bad. One of them is Douglas, who sounds like the goddamn Cookie Monster for some reason, and his voice is just goofy and distracting. The other is Vincent, who sounds like he's constantly nervous that his dad may discover the gay porn in his browser history because he left his computer open back home. I don't really think this game needed the HD collection voice treatment the way Silent Hill 2 did, but I'll take it regardless. I tend to use a mod that imports the HD collection voices anytime I play this game. Sure, they may be anime dubbed voice actors, but they're consistent and talented, and I have absolutely zero nostalgic attachment to the original performances. I know some people will disagree with that, but I don't give a fuck. I'll play it how I want to. Speaking of which, it's probably time to address that and the different ports of this game that there are. Starting with the PS2, through emulation of course, it's the original vision. Team Silent abandoned the pressure-sensitive button bullshit after realizing it wasn't really catching on and was just a fad, so the light and strong attacks are back to working the way they did in Silent Hill 1. The PS2 emulation was how I originally played it, and it was damn near flawless, until I got to Brookhaven Hospital. For some reason, the effects that are used for the other worlds, moving skin, don't really translate all that well through emulation, leading to an absolutely blurry, sludgy mess. Like, it's already hard enough to see what the fuck is going on the normal way, but through the emulator, it's 10 times worse, to the point where I actually got stuck here for like an hour, even with the map, because I just could not see certain doors. The visuals are pretty broken here. This is the only part of the game that is botched like this though, through emulation, so if you can get through this Vaseline covered mess, it's probably the most straightforward plug and play way to experience the game. But because Brookhaven Hospital looked so bad in emulation, this led to me checking out the PC version in curiosity, because I refused to believe that the mess I was seeing was the way they intended it to look. Luckily, after the PC version of Silent Hill 2 was such hot garbage because they outsourced it, Konami decided to do this one in-house, and doing the usually PC thing of downloading a game here, tweaking a config file there, dragging and dropping some shit here. I got things working smoothly and replayed up until the hospital to confirm my suspicion that the emulator was making the game look worse than it's supposed to, and I was right. I highly recommend the PC version above all else. All of the effects are mostly accurate, and the hospital now looks insane. I can see how this might be people's favorite area of the game. The only thing you lose is some bonus costumes on PS2, which are mostly just palette swaps of the same tank top and jeans template, but seeing as how Booty Shorts Heather was nerfed before release, I kinda always go default for that reason. Speaking of which, Heather was originally supposed to wear a hoodie and jeans, but the women on the team insisted that she be hotter and threw her into a skirt and whatever else this outfit is supposed to be, which created one of the most iconic looks of all time. They were right on the money. So I guess that leaves the HD collection. Like I said in the last video, the HD collection isn't ideal, but with patches it really isn't that bad. I still stand by that statement. Pre-patch? Yeah, it's pretty botched, but playing a version of Silent Hill 2 and 3 is better than playing absolutely nothing. So if you have an Xbox and unpatched HD collection Silent Hill is all you got, then it's all you got. Do what you gotta do to experience these games. But the PS3 version specifically, post-patches, is a good enough way to experience the game if it's what you have to work with. I'd definitely say the HD version of Silent Hill 3 is a bit more compromised than the HD version of Silent Hill 2, even post-patch. I ran into audio issues sometimes and I couldn't tell if they were related to the emulation or the port itself, very rarely. And there were some effects I could clearly tell were missing. But I never found anything in it so wrong that it magically didn't feel like Silent Hill 3. If all your eggs are in the PS3 emulation basket, or you have a PS3 copy of this that your dad or uncle or some shit bought like 10 years ago, it'll be fine. For the bad rep that these ports get, motherfuckers will still pay hundreds of dollars just to own a copy of it. So consider yourself lucky if you already have one. Not really going to go into detail on the HD collection and why it gets a bad reputation. I already did that in the Silent Hill 2 video, so watch that if you want the rundown. The only thing I will mention is that there is no option to use the original voice acting, unlike Silent Hill 2 HD, So if you're allergic to decent voice performances in your horror games, that may be a problem for you or something, I don't know. Konami was just being absolutely stupid when it came to these. These ports could be somewhere today living the good life like the HD ports of Resident Evil 1 and 0, and instead they were taken out back, shot, and left to die because of greed and disrespect to their legacy. But like I mentioned, the PC is the way to go, just like with Silent Hill 2. You can stick with the original voices or mod the HD voices in at your leisure the same way. Everybody wins, and with a little tweaking, it all works completely fine. And that really is it as far as gameplay discussion. Like, this game is just so easy to talk about, and the script feels way shorter and simpler for me to write because Silent Hill 3 really is just the first two games but better. And I gotta be honest, I'm a little biased towards it because of its aesthetic and the attitude it puts out. Like, it just oozes this 2000s to mid-2010s era youthful rock energy that I'm always a sucker for. I'm nostalgic for it and I miss these days dearly. So every time I play Silent Hill 3, it's like going back in time to when everybody dressed better and made absolutely timeless albums. I appreciate how Heather's bangs are side swooped to precise because let me tell you, that shit ain't easy. You gotta be a veteran to this wave to appreciate a swoop like that. There's an energy this game has in capturing this time period that I just eat up. Be that as it may, we should probably get back to the story. The mall here is a pretty solid first major location. It's way better than the school in the original as it's not nearly as confusing to navigate. It's debatable whether it's better than the apartments in 2, as the apartments could also be confusing and samey, but they were also easier. Silent Hill 3's mall is more simple to get through, but also harder of a first area, as there's a lot more spongy enemies everywhere. So pick your poison, but I prefer the mall to the apartments. Heather fights her way through said mall, killing a pretty solid first boss that brings her back to the real world, where she runs into Douglas, who's managed to see all the crazy shit that just went down in the mall for himself. Douglas says he's not really working with Claudia, she only hired him to find her. Heather doesn't trust him and decides to find her own way home through the subway. This location is eerily quiet and creepy. There's a moment here that can trigger you if you read a newspaper where a ghost literally pushes you off the platform onto the tracks. Taking a magical ghost train home that keeps eating itself every time she passes through another part of it, the train drops her off at the underground sewers. This location does some really cool shit with its visuals on New Game Plus runs where the walls start to bleed and pulsate. You can also find a cute little sewer fairy here that will reward her with a gold or silver pipe for her honesty after solving a puzzle. Now, the construction side I want to talk about here because if you've listened to the way I talk about horror games, I have a dislike for people who deep throat atmosphere as the end-all be-all when it comes to grading a horror game. I feel like it's the most single-serving thing you can look at. Atmosphere with nothing in it is just a walking simulator like Gone Home, and I much prefer monsters everywhere and actual combat and gameplay. I would rather a game jump scare me a million times than just turn the lights out and play spookynoise.mp3s every now and then because something at least fucking happened. And I disagree with the idea that a game is smarter or better for being atmospheric as opposed to any other kind of horror just off that basis alone. That being said, it's not like I can't appreciate good atmosphere when it doesn't result in a game that's 75% walking and 25% actual fucking video game. And the construction site here is a prime example of that. This place is one of the most atmospheric moments in the game. There's not a single enemy in sight and it's almost dead quiet. The craziest thing to happen is you finding a dead body in the walls if you get a little too curious. Now, what's the important part here? The construction site is brief. It's like 4 or 5 rooms that take you maybe 2 to 5 minutes to explore maximum and then you're out. What it doesn't do is take all my weapons away and then drag the shit out for the next 30 minutes like modern Resident Evil games that supposedly are a return to their roots seem to love to do. Silent Hill 3 created one of the most memorable moments in the franchise for its atmosphere and creep factor in like 2 fucking minutes, kept it moving, and didn't need some shitty instant kill Outlast fetus monster to do it. Just like that, we're in some kind of shopping center where Heather accidentally triggers another otherworld and meets Vincent, who knows a lot about her, Harry, Dahlia, and Claudia. Heather brushes him off since she can tell he's working with Claudia, and she gets out of the shopping center by literally poofing the monster blocking the doors out of existence with a chant. Like, I need you to understand just how completely busted Heather is lore-wise. She can't die because she has a monster following her around everywhere to make sure she births the cult's god. the same monster that guarded over her time as Alessa and killed Lisa and her boyfriend. She can turn on and off Otherworld at will, but doesn't really have control over it. Like, there's pretty much only one other character in the lore that can do that, and he technically borrowed the power from her. She's completely broken on the horror game protagonist tier list, right next to Leon Kennedy and Isaac Clarke. But regardless, she's made it home. Unfortunately, our boy Harry was assassinated. I can't lie, seeing a protagonist you've played as before in his own game die always hurts a bit. I still, to this day, don't like Trevor from GTA 5 for that very reason, but Heather is quick with the get back, and finds Claudia on the roof, who admits to ordering Harry's death. I know she had to have caught him off guard because she would be dead meat otherwise. Claudia escapes while Heather fights Harry's assassin. After killing him, Douglas shows up and offers his help. Heather composes herself, gathers some supplies, including Harry's journal, and they go after Claudia in Silent Hill. Through Harry's writings, she learns about her origins and everything that happened in the original Silent Hill. She's the baby that the incubator gave Harry at the end of the game, so for a second time, Harry adopted a daughter that wasn't his. The lore here is actually pretty interesting. Harry took the baby in and raised her, but sometimes mentally struggled with the fact that Cheryl was erased from existence to merge with Alessa and create Heather. He originally named Heather Cheryl, but changed her name to Heather to both better hide her and feel less like she replaced Cheryl. This is also why he's so adamant that Heather dyes her hair blonde. After arriving in Silent Hill, Douglas and Heather split up. He heads to a guy named Leonard's house after being tipped off by Vincent, and Heather heads to Brookhaven Hospital for clues. Now we can finally explore the town of Silent Hill again, and it's cool seeing familiar places almost a decade later. It is far more restrictive though. Really a game that wants you doing less backtracking and running around mazes, and more moving forward. A lot of areas, even returning ones, are far less complicated to try to navigate and solve than the first two games. Brookhaven Hospital, like hospital levels in most Silent Hill games, is the highlight of the game. The nurses here have a similar but also slightly altered design to the ones from Silent Hill 2, as they actually have faces, and Heather's mental struggles are different from James's. But for all intents and purposes, outside of that, they behave similar to what you'd expect from a Silent Hill nurse. There are some interesting mysteries here, like the happy birthday caller. Think of the mystery of the elevator game show host from the second game that's just sort of an unexplained occurrence, and this is similar to that. And there's also the mystery of Stanley Coleman. Stanley is a patient at the hospital who seems obsessed with Heather, constantly writing in his journals and making her dolls, and helping her solve puzzles around the hospital. He's never met her, but seems to know her, and everything about her, much to her confusion. They never meet or interact, as he's seemingly killed by Leonard just before Heather finds him. You can sort of hear his last moments where he tries to communicate with her but can't if you head into the morgue. Clues the happy birthday caller gives about him let you know that body number 7 is Stanley. Speaking of Leonard, through a bizarre phone call, Heather learns that Claudia is his daughter. He intends to stop Claudia with some kind of seal, and asks Heather to find him through the door at the end of the hall on the second floor. Here's the thing. This door was never here in Silent Hill 2, nor when you first got here in Silent Hill 3. It only shows up after talking to him. So something ain't right here. And as soon as you walk through this door, you pretty much know it. Heather finds herself trapped in a maze, and after having a flash of memories, drags the hospital into Otherworld. You even pass by what is supposed to be Lisa from the first game, even though they barely made an attempt to make the dead nurse look like her. You guys really could have done better with that one. But they make up for it in the fact that this is pretty much the best Otherworld moment in any Silent Hill game to date. I say that, but I haven't played Silent Hill F, which drops in like 2 days as of the time of writing this script. So maybe my viewpoint will change. This entire moment pretty much sums up what makes Silent Hill appealing for me. It's why I'm so adamant that you play through the PC version with all the effects working properly above everything else. Which is why I'm 100% sure that this game remade like Silent Hill 2 would go crazy. Speaking of going crazy, Heather finally runs into Leonard, who was thrown in here for going crazy. He's a violent patient that was abusive to his daughter and reveals that he's actually worse than Claudia. Claudia is doing what she's doing in an attempt to save humanity, while Leonard only wants to stop her because he disagrees with the idea that anyone who's not a member of the cult should be saved in the first place. He wants everyone outside of the cult dead. Since Heather isn't going for that, she has to kill him. There is also the fact that he's for some reason turned into a hideous monster. I have no idea how that happened, especially since no other Silent Hill character will ever do this in the franchise unless they're already long dead. But the mental gymnastics needed to justify how the fuck that happened are way above my pay grade. Bottom line, Heather makes this motherfucker dead as hell, which pulls Heather back into the fog world. She picks up the seal and heads back to the motel where Claudia and Vincent are arguing over the fact that Vincent got Leonard killed. How the fuck do they already know that Leonard is dead? Who knows? The two clearly don't get along and argue over a bunch of religious mumbo jumbo, and Claudia leaves. Heather enters the motel to find Vincent instead of Douglas. Vincent drip feeds her more clues and tells her the location of the cult's church. To get there, she's gonna have to cut through the amusement park, which brings her full circle to her nightmare from the start of the game, which is hilarious because even she knows she just got fucking scammed. She's also starting to have stomach pains and shows signs of pregnancy, meaning somehow, someway, she's carrying the demon god of the cult again. Don't ask me how the fuck that happened, considering the old her expelled the god and Harry killed him, but yeah, she's got it inside of her, again. To avoid getting slimed by the roller coaster this time, Heather turns off the machine. But it just turns itself back on, and the roller coaster still almost runs her over anyway. I really hate moments in games like this where you do something as a requirement to progress only for the end result to be the same. The ride almost kills her in the exact same place as before. The only difference is that she doesn't go full retard and decides to jump off at the last second onto a ticket booth. So she could have just done that regardless of pressing the on or off switch. Anyway, Douglas tracks down Claudia himself, upset that he was lied to about who Heather was, and fucks up his chance to end the game early. Stop yapping with this bitch and just shoot her! Meanwhile, Heather makes her way through one of those haunted houses at the amusement park, only this one has real bodies in it and is trying to kill her. Another 10 out of 10 location. I just wish the game gave you a better warning before the chase sequence, as the red light does a lot of fucking damage, and as you can imagine, fighting with tank controls while the camera faces away from where you're running isn't pleasant. After running around the amusement park, she runs into this useless motherfucker who somehow got himself hurt, so now she has to finish this her damn self. Douglas contemplates just shooting Heather right here and ending things, but can't bring himself to do it. Not like this would actually work, he'd just get himself killed. I mentioned this before, but the demon that constantly watches over Heather to make sure she stays alive long enough for the birth to be completed would just drag her off to get revived, and when Lisa tried this, she got herself killed. Heather continues on, and the Ferris wheel projects Alessa, who tries to wrestle control away through a boss fight. That is a direct callback to the fight against Sybil from the first game. Heather, being a reincarnation of both Cheryl and Alessa, is starting to gain both of their sets of memories, and carrying 3 sets has to be a lot of work. Alessa is trying to wrestle control away because she wants to off herself and stop this plan once and for all. Though, once again, with Professor Revive around, I don't think her plan will work. Really cool fight. She uses most of the weapons that you use, and the simple common sense addition of effective defensive mechanics in your fucking horror game make this battle feel pretty solid for a 2-decade-old horror game. But nonetheless, the two fight for control and Heather wins, and has a mental heart-to-heart with Alessa before moving on. Finding the secret entrance to the church, we run into Claudia again, and Heather has regained pretty much most of her memories from all of her lives and deaths. She could just shoot her in the fucking face right now and be done with it, but they decide to yap for a bit. Heather / Alessa makes it clear that birthing the god isn't what she wants, and she disagrees with Claudia's bullshit. But she's running out of time. She's close to going into labor. And with that, Claudia runs off, and it's time to explore the church that Heather has of course roped into Otherworld again. Fantastic final level for the game. Things of note here are that this is pretty much the only location where you can make a choice that can determine whether or not you get the bad ending of the game. but it's only really relevant to New Game Plus, where you pretty much act as God and forgive some lady in a confession. Outside of that, we learn Claudia's backstory. She and Alessa were best friends in school. She was actually Alessa's only real friend. And when Alessa was chosen to birth their god, Claudia was all for it. Of course, Dahlia fucked up the plan due to being impatient, and Harry ruined it completely when he shut this shit down and ran away with Heather. All of this has been a result of Claudia's cult brainwashing and her desperation to save the world and reunite with Alessa. She's done all of this to make Heather angry enough to awaken the god inside that realistically should be dead, but whatever. Heather runs into Vincent again, who yaps a bit about how he's helping Heather solely to kill Claudia. Vincent doesn't want Heather to birth the demon because the church brings in a lot of money somehow, and he's all about the Benjamins. The seal Heather picked up when she offed Leonard is supposed to stop the god from being born when it's used at the right time. At least I'm assuming that's how it works, because the game barely explains what it's supposed to do at all. Exploration from this point is very interesting, as Harry's memories have somehow merged into the other world, and Heather runs around in hers, his, and Claudia's memories, picking up pieces to unlock the door to her room from when she was Alessa, mirroring what Harry had to do in the first game right down to the final save room, where she reads his thoughts on the notepad just before he went through the door to save Cheryl, which means that all the save points in Silent Hill 1 were times Harry stopped and documented his journey and his thoughts on what was going on. Beautifully executed fan service. But this is it, it's time to shut this shit down. Vincent and Claudia argue over their views of the church, and Claudia stabs him right when Heather walks in. Vincent tells Heather to use the seal, but Claudia reveals it's completely worthless and doesn't work, and kills him for good. Heather is out of time, it's now or never. But our boy Harry gets the last laugh. When Heather was a child, Harry managed to get his hands on some more of the red liquid that helped stop this bullshit the first time around, and modified it into a pill. He put it in a necklace and told her to never take it off and always keep it close. Through his letters he left her, she realizes what he did and takes the pill at the last second, which saves her, and she pukes the god up. Claudia, in her desperation to save her plan, ingests the fetus herself to get the job done. The demon that's been watching over Heather the whole game focuses its attention on Claudia instead and drags her through the floor of the church, where Heather chases after her. Claudia is dead, God is here, and Heather has to finish what Harry started. This boss fight is probably the most solid out of the Team Silent library, honestly. There is no shitty camera angle to deal with, it's just straightforward. The most effective way I've found to deal with it is to use firearms when it's standing to bring it down and then beat its ass with a melee weapon when it falls. Outside of that, it's your standard survival horror boss fight. That's just a war of attrition where you face tank some hits that come out way too fast for you to realistically do anything about by guzzling healing items and spamming attacks. When it dies, she kicks the shit out of it a couple of times in rage. She then breaks down crying over Harry again and leaves to go meet up with Douglas, where she plays a joke on him like she's possessed. She says she's changing her name back to Cheryl in memory of her father, and they relax now that the nightmare is over. The alternate ending has her actually possessed where she kills Douglas, but it's non-canon and worthless, just something of a what-if treat. This game also gives you a lot of cool stuff the more you play it, like additional outfits and weapons, my personal favorite of which being a lightsaber. But yeah, that's Silent Hill 3, it's very simple. This game is way easier to make a video on than the other two. If you remember what I said about Resident Evil 3 when I talked about it, it should come as no surprise that Silent Hill 3 is my favorite entry in the original Team Silent lineup. There's not a million different endings to it, because it has a story it wants to tell and it focuses down and makes sure that that's the one that it tells. There's no muddying of the lore like a lot of the multiple ending bullshit of the old Resident Evil games had. Just like in RE3, the arsenal of weapons is vast, creative, and plentiful enough to allow you to experiment and have fun while using it. Any horror game that will just give you a katana to slice and dice with and not give a shit is okay in my book. Just like the first two games, the idea that they are punishing you for fighting and about running away from enemies is absolute horseshit. The game hands you a fucking damage reducing vest, and rewards you with bonus melee weapons or bonus firearms in New Game Plus if your kill count is high. The firearms are competent, and unlike Resident Evil, until 4, melee is competent too. So no matter what you tend to gravitate towards, you have a good arsenal to work with. As much as old head horror fans don't want to admit, Silent Hill as a series has always been less cutthroat than the older horror game narrative that they like to run with. that is actually the key to Silent Hill's success up to this point. It does what Resident Evil won't do and refuses to pretend that survival horror at this time didn't have some problems and annoyances, and does all sorts of things to make sure you can't really fuck your playthrough over. Think ink ribbons are stupid? We got you covered. Running low on ammo? Our melee weapon lineup is solid. Hell, Silent Hill 1 will kill its final boss if you run out of ammo, just to make sure all your hard work in the playthrough isn't wasted. Don't like the game hiding crucial ammo pickups invisibly in fucking 2D backgrounds? Don't worry, because we don't do that shit here. Silent Hill 3's ammo counts in particular are noticeably lower than the first two, but it balances that out with better melee mechanics and the strongest melee weapon roster overall. And it's not so much lower that it feels bullshit like Code Veronica or something. It just means that instead of ending the game with something like 140 shotgun shells in Silent Hill 2, you'll probably end up with like 30 to 50. Still more than enough. All these games let you enjoy the combat if you want, while rewarding you for evading enemies with a way easier time when shit really gets real. And that, in my opinion, is the best way to balance a survival horror game. I love Resident Evil, my viewers know this, but I have no discomfort in saying that Silent Hill 1, 2, 3 are leagues ahead of Resident Evil 1 to 3 in terms of game design and balancing. They are the definitive survival horror experience in my opinion. I love the Resident Evil 1 remake. I think that and Resident Evil 3 OG are probably the best experiences with classic fixed camera survival horror that you can have if you're solely looking at Resident Evil. But Silent Hill 1 to 3 are so far the best in that category, period. And if you ask me what I'd rather load up when I'm looking to scratch an old survival horror itch between Resident Evil 1 remake and Silent Hill 3, I'm picking Silent Hill 3 and I won't even think that hard about it. Now that's not to say it's perfect, I've laid out my issues with it. I also have some issues with the story because there's plenty of things that could use more elaboration. How in the fuck did Heather get pregnant with God again if Harry killed it years earlier? Why did the seal not work if 2 out of 3 cult members we meet believe in the seal? What happened to Heather's guardian demon during the boss fight with God, because it kinda just disappears once the fight starts and is never heard from again? How could Heather get possessed by God in the alternate ending when she just killed it for the second time? Stuff like that. But a lot of these old horror games are full of these same kind of plot holes that people will shit on modern horror games for that just get hand-waved away due to nostalgia, so maybe I'm not dick-sucking the old horror game good, new horror game bad narrative enough for some people, but it is what it is. But overall, as a package, you can't beat this lineup. Team Silent was on an absolutely Hall of Fame run here. It's just a shame that before they disbanded, they left an absolute piece of garbage that is called Silent Hill 4 as their parting gift, undoing pretty much everything right they did that made them stand out compared to their competition. I really don't want to talk about Silent Hill 4 the same way I really didn't want to talk about Resident Evil 0, but I know I have to. I don't like talking about shit I don't like. I prefer to talk about shit that I do like because I think that makes for a more interesting video, so I know Silent Hill 4 is going to be a pain to write, but I guess I'll see you guys then. I hope you enjoyed the video.